The signal no one noticed. The night sky above Earth looked calm and silent. But far beyond the stars, something ancient was waiting, something powerful, something sleeping in the dark corners of the galaxy. And this something had just noticed humanity for the very first time on Earth. Scientists worked late inside a quiet research lab. Their team studied deep space signals, weak radio waves, and mysterious noise from distant stars. Most signals were normal, nothing special, nothing important, but this one signal was different. It was slow, steady, and strange. It looked broken, like a damaged code. So the scientists believed it was only space interference. Nothing serious, nothing dangerous. They did not know that this was not noise. It was a Galactic Empire entry signal, a call used only by ancient star civilizations, a sign that said gateway, active, but to humans, it sounded like static. Dr. Aisha, the lead scientist, checked the monitor again. She spoke calmly, her voice careful and curious. She said the signal might help test their new experimental drive. The crew agreed. They were excited. They were nervous but hopeful. No one believed this test would change history. No one believed this test would open a path into another part of the universe. They powered the engines. The ship, Horizon Dawn, floated in orbit above Earth. It was only a small research vessel, not a warship, not a fleet, just a simple exploration craft. The crew joked about coffee, fuel, and food packs. They were relaxed. They did not think about danger. They did not think about war. They only thought about science and discovery. The engine activated. A bright ripple moved through space. A silent wave formed in the darkness. Space bent like glass. A wormhole opened, slow and smooth. The Horizon Dawn disappeared inside the gate. At that same moment, far away, deep inside the Galactic Empire, alarms echoed across massive star stations. Warships turned toward the new signal. Commanders watched in shock. The gateway had opened, and an unknown species had entered Imperial territory. For thousands of years, every species feared the Empire. Every new civilization that entered either surrendered or begged for mercy. The Empire expected panic, fear, screams, but when they scanned the human ship, they found something unsettling. The humans were calm. The crew spoke in relaxed voices. They discussed engine heat, oxygen levels, and travelogues. One crew member laughed softly about running out of snacks. To the Empire, this behavior was terrifying. Why were the humans not afraid? Why were they not crying or shouting? Why were they not asking for help? On the command bridge of the Imperial flagship, Grand Strategist Vora watched the humans carefully. He studied their expressions. He studied their movements. He whispered to his officers that this species might be dangerous. Not because of weapons, not because of ships, but because nothing frightened them. The Empire surrounded the Horizon Dawn with giant war cruisers. Their cannons glowed. Their ships blocked every escape path. Inside the human vessel, the captain spoke softly to his crew. He told them to stay calm, to remain professional. No panic, no fear, only discipline. The Empire expected them to freeze in terror. Instead, the humans asked a simple question. Can we talk? The communication hall fell silent across the fleet. No begging, no fear, just calm voices. The Empire did not understand this. They believed humans were either foolish or fearless, and both possibilities were dangerous. Grand Strategist Vora made his decision. The humans would be brought to the Imperial Council. They must be studied, examined, understood. Because if a species could walk into the heart of the Empire without fear, then that species might become the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. And somewhere, deep inside the Horizon Dawn, the human crew looked at the endless alien stars. They did not know where they had arrived. They did not know what waited ahead, but they were ready to face it. Because humans had always walked into the unknown, without fear. The Empire meets the stranger species. The Horizon Dawn moved slowly through the massive Imperial fleet. The giant warships surrounded it from every side. Their metal hulls were dark and sharp. Their engines burned like distant suns. To most species, this sight meant fear, surrender, and silence. But inside the human ship, the crew stayed calm. The Empire guided the humans toward the largest space station in the sector. It was a giant ring city floating in the void, full of bright lights, busy docks, and endless corridors. Dozens of alien species watched from behind armored glass. Some were shocked, some were curious, some were afraid. because a new species had entered the Empire without warning. The humans looked at the station with quiet wonder. They did not panic. They did not shout. They only observed. The captain told the crew to stay professional, to collect data, to document everything. Their mission remained the same: exploration first, fear later. Inside the Imperial Council chamber, tall alien figures stood in a circle. Their robes shimmered with royal symbols. Their eyes watched every movement of the humans as they walked inside. Security drones aimed weapons at them. Guards waited along the walls. The Empire was ready for resistance, ready for fear, ready for weakness. But the humans did not shake. They did not tremble. They walked with steady steps, slow and controlled, their expressions calm, their eyes alert. They looked like explorers who had seen storms, wars, disasters, and still continued forward. Grand Strategist Varel studied them closely. He noticed something strange. The humans were not careless. They were not arrogant. They were simply comfortable in danger, and that made them more terrifying than any weapon. The council expected humans to beg for safety. Instead, the human captain spoke in a polite and steady voice. He asked about docking regulations, fuel costs, and repair facilities. He requested navigation charts and trade policy details. To the Empire, this sounded like confidence, like authority, like a species that had never learned how to kneel. Some council members whispered that humans must be hiding great power. Others believed humans were foolish and unaware of the danger. But Vorel knew better. He understood that only a species shaped by hardship could remain this calm. The Empire began a formal evaluation. They scanned human biology. They studied their lungs, bones, muscles, and nervous systems. What they found shocked them. Humans were built for survival. Their bodies healed faster than most species. Their muscles adapted to stress. Their minds stayed stable under fear. Records of Earth history appeared. On Imperial screens, the Council saw wars, disasters, famine, and struggle. They saw humans fall and rise again, again, and again. They understood that humans did not lack fear. They had simply learned to live beside it. The council chamber grew silent. One advisor whispered that humans were unpredictable. Another said they were dangerous only because they refused to break. Vorel finally spoke, his voice calm and heavy. He said that a species that survives everything cannot be controlled easily. Meanwhile, the human crew remained polite. They followed every instruction. They respected every rule, but behind their calm faces, they stayed alert. They mapped exits, studied guard positions, and memorized station routes. Not because they planned to fight, but because humans always prepared for the worst. Across the station, rumors spread. Workers whispered about the new species that did not fear the Empire. Traders said the humans looked ordinary, yet felt powerful. Soldiers felt uneasy, because the humans smiled inside a place where no one ever smiled. The Empire expected fear, but instead, they had found patience, discipline, and quiet strength. And when the session ended, Grand Strategist Vorel gave a final order. Do not provoke the humans, because he now understood a dangerous truth. Humans were not fearless. They were simply unshaken, even in the heart of the Empire. Unbroken spirit. The Empire decided that the humans must be tested. They wanted to learn how strong their minds were, how deep their fear was, and how easily they could be broken. Many species had entered these testing halls before, and almost all of them had failed. Some cried, some begged, some collapsed, but the council believed humans would finally reveal their weakness here. The humans were taken through long metal corridors. The walls were cold and silent. Security drones followed every step. The air was heavy. The place felt like a prison. But the human crew walked calmly, their steps steady, their eyes watchful. They spoke softly to one another, making small jokes and quiet comments, as if they were walking through a routine workplace instead of an imperial test chamber. The first trial was a fear simulation. The room changed into a violent battlefield. Explosions filled the air. Flames burned across ruined cities. Loud echoes of war surrounded them. Most species broke during this test. They screamed and fell to the ground. But the humans behaved differently. They did not panic. They did not run. They moved like people who had seen such things before. The captain called out instructions in a calm voice. The crew formed a small safety circle. They checked their surroundings. They looked for exits. They treated the illusion like a real emergency drill. Empire observers were confused. One officer asked why the humans were not terrified. Another officer whispered that maybe the simulation was not strong enough, but Grand Strategist Vorel understood. He said quietly that humans had lived through real battles, and illusions could not scare those who had already faced reality. The second trial was isolation. Each human was placed in a silent white room. No sound, no movement, no light for long hours. Other species usually begged to be released. They cried, they shouted, they lost control of their minds, but the humans remained still. Some sat and breathed slowly. Some closed their eyes and imagined peaceful places. Some quietly counted the seconds to keep their thoughts steady. They did not break. They did not lose themselves. They simply endured, like they had endured storms, hunger, loneliness, and long journeys before. When the doors finally opened, the humans walked out calmly, their faces tired but steady. No anger, no fear, only quiet strength. The guards who watched them felt uneasy. They had never seen such mental endurance before. To them, the humans did not look like prisoners. They looked like explorers passing through another challenge. The third trial tested emotional pressure. The Empire showed them images of Earth, disasters, tragedies, and loss. They waited for tears and despair, but instead, they saw something else. The humans did feel pain. Their eyes became heavy. Their voices grew quiet, but they did not collapse. They did not fall apart. They carried their grief like weight they already knew. They had learned to stand even when their hearts hurt, and this made the Council realize something important. Humans were not fearless. They had simply learned how to walk forward even when fear was beside them. Vorel spoke to the Council in a serious voice. He said that humans were not strong because of their weapons or technology. They were strong because they could bend without breaking. They could suffer without surrender. They could struggle without losing hope. Across the station, more rumors spread. Some aliens admired the humans. Others feared them even more. Workers whispered that humans smiled under pressure. Soldiers wondered what humans would become if they ever chose to fight for real. The tests were over, but the Empire had gained something much greater than data. They had seen a truth written deep inside the human spirit. Humans did not survive because the universe was kind. They survived because they refused to break even when the universe tried to crush them. The quiet threat. The news of the human tests spread quickly through the Empire. From the highest military decks to the lowest worker halls, everyone was talking about the new species that did not break. Some aliens said the humans were brave. Others whispered that they were dangerous, but everyone agreed on one thing. The humans were different. In the military command sector, a powerful faction watched the reports with cold eyes. These officers did not trust calm faces or quiet strength. They believed fear was the only language the Empire should speak. To them, a species that did not fear was not admirable. It was a threat. General Kerith, a hard and ambitious leader, studied the human footage again and again. He watched the simulations, the isolation rooms, the emotional tests. He watched how the humans stayed steady, how they adapted, how they refused to collapse. His voice was sharp when he spoke to his council. He said that any species that could endure so much would one day challenge the Empire. His officers agreed. They believed the Council was making a mistake by treating the humans gently. They believed humans should be controlled early, before they grew stronger, before they learned more, before they began to understand the Empire's weaknesses. Rumors reached the humans too. They heard whispers in the halls, silent looks from guards, uneasy glances from technicians. The human captain understood what those looks meant. He knew danger was forming in the shadows, but he did not show fear to his crew. He only reminded them to stay alert, to stay united, to stay disciplined. In the markets and worker districts of the station, small groups of aliens gathered to watch the humans pass through the corridors. Some smiled kindly, some nodded with respect. They saw humans as survivors, as people like themselves, but others stepped back when they saw them, as if the humans were made of something sharp and unpredictable. The Empire was slowly dividing into two sides. One side saw hope, the other saw threat. General Kerith began his plan in secret. He sent spy drones to monitor the Horizon Dawn. He ordered soldiers to map human behavior. He studied their routines, their maintenance work, their conversation patterns. He did not see weakness, and that made him even more afraid. He told his faction that humans must never be allowed to act freely in the Empire. He said humans would make powerful soldiers, strong workers, perfect tools for war, but only if they were controlled, only if they were owned. only if Earth itself was forced under the Empire's rule. Vorel disagreed. He believed humans deserved respect, not chains. He warned that forcing them would bring disaster. He said that humans did not look dangerous because they were loud or aggressive. They were dangerous because they stayed calm, even when surrounded by power, but the faction did not listen. Late in the night cycle of the station, the Horizon Dawn crew noticed unusual patrol patterns, extra guards in the docking ring, locked doors in maintenance tunnels, silent ships drifting closer to their berth. The crew shared quiet glances. They understood what this meant. Without speaking, something was coming. The captain gathered his team in the control room. His voice was steady. He told them to prepare emergency protocols, to secure data, to protect one another. They did not panic. They did not shout. They worked with quiet speed, as people who had lived through danger many times before. On the command deck of the faction flagship, General Kerith gave his final order. His ships moved into position around the human vessel, ready to strike, ready to capture, ready to test whether humans truly were unbreakable. Across the stars outside, the station windows, the darkness felt heavier. The air inside the corridors felt colder. The silence before conflict wrapped around every heart. And in that silence, one truth became clear to those who watched from afar. The humans were not loud, they were not violent, but their quiet confidence felt like a storm waiting to begin. The moment the Empire understands the attack began without warning. Silent alarms flashed across the docking ring. Heavy doors locked into place. Soldiers moved through the shadows with controlled steps, their armor cold, their eyes sharp. The factions, ships surrounded the Horizon Dawn like iron jaws closing slowly around prey. Inside the human vessel, the crew felt the vibration in the hull. They heard the distant echo of engines outside. The captain looked at the monitors, his voice calm, his mind steady. He did not shout. He did not panic. He simply said that they were under threat. The crew answered without fear. They moved to their stations. They secured data cores. They protected navigation logs. They prepared emergency shields. They worked like people who had practiced danger many times before, their movements smooth, disciplined, and controlled. General Kerith believed this moment would reveal human weakness. He expected fear, confusion, desperate cries for help. But when his soldiers opened communication, they did not see chaos. They saw focused faces, steady eyes, and quiet determination. The humans did not ask why the attack was happening. They did not beg for safety. Instead, the captain asked a simple question. Is this an official military operation? The faction officers hesitated. They were not ready for calmness. They were not ready for logic. Their plan was built on fear, not conversation, and fear was not happening. Kerith ordered his troops to board the ship. Armed units marched toward the docking bridge, their weapons charged, their commanders confident. They believed they would capture the humans in moments, but when the doors opened, the humans were already prepared. They had sealed critical sections. They had rerouted power. They had controlled every passage. The boarding teams found narrow corridors, locked compartments, and security traps that slowed their movement. Not violent traps, not deadly tools, only smart obstacles designed to delay and protect. The humans were not fighting to destroy. They were fighting to survive. Vorel watched the unfolding event from the command screens in disbelief. He saw how the humans avoided unnecessary conflict, how they protected civilians, how they refused to attack unless forced. He understood something powerful in that moment. Strength was not loud. Strength was patient. The faction soldiers grew frustrated. Some pushed forward recklessly. One squad cornered a small human team near an engineering bay. The officers expected fear in their faces, but instead they saw calm resolve. The human engineer spoke softly. He warned them that a power system behind them was unstable. He told them to step back for their own safety, even under threat, even surrounded by weapons. The humans thought about protecting life first. The soldiers hesitated, for the first time. They doubted their mission. Kerith grew angry. He ordered a forced breach. Explosive charges shook the docking ring. The shockwave echoed across the station. The Empire watched in silence. The conflict was no longer hidden. It was now visible to all. The human crew responded with precision. They shielded injured workers. They guided lost civilians to safe corridors. They used emergency tools, first aid kits, and protective barricades. They moved like rescue teams, instead of warriors. Aliens, watching from nearby platforms, felt something change inside their hearts. They did not see invaders. They did not see rebels. They saw protectors. They saw survivors. They saw people who stood strong not to conquer others, but to guard their own. Kareth realized, too late, that humans were not unafraid because they were foolish. They were unafraid because they were used to danger. His forces began to retreat under internal resistance. Some officers refused to continue the attack.